In the heart of Ndamba village, where the dust clung to bare feet and secrets floated in the wind like whispers through banana leaves, a man returned. They said he had been away too long, seen too much, and touched too many things a village man should not have. His name was Jumo, and though the elders tried to ignore his presence, the women did not. The first time he walked through the market square, shirtless beneath the harsh sun, with sweat glistening off the curves of muscles carved like river stones, time seemed to pause. He wasn't just tall. He was wide-shouldered and thick-thighed, his voice low like the distant thunder that makes hens scatter before the rain. But it wasn't just his size that unsettled the women. It was the way he moved, like a panther, knowing the power in his every step. And it was the rumor. A rumor women passed between their lips like a ripe mango seed they were afraid to swallow. Jumo's manhood, they whispered, wasn't ordinary. It was the kind that changed women. It was the kind that made married women cook extra soup and hope their husbands came home late. The kind that made young girls forget prayers and ache during moonlight dances. Even Mama Nalia, the stern widow who sold cassava at the roadside, couldn't hide the way her eyes traced his back when he walked away. "It's not good," she told her daughter Wanja, though her voice cracked. "That man carries trouble between his legs." But Wanja, barely 21, and full of the fire of a girl who had never yet touched danger, felt it too. The way her thighs pressed tight when Jumo greeted her in the market. The way her heart beat like war drums just from his smile. She'd heard the tales of Jumo in the city. How he'd broken the marriage of a rich merchant's wife. How women used to fight to sit on his lap during bar nights. How one woman even left her children behind for him. But Wanja did not believe in stories until one evening she saw it for herself. She had gone to fetch water from the borehole, and there he was. Shirt around his neck, filling buckets for old Mama Rico. His trousers hung low. And for a moment, just a moment, something moved beneath the cloth that made her mouth dry. She wasn't a virgin. She had tasted boys her age, felt their fast fumbling in dark corners, but nothing about them prepared her for the sight of Jumo's bulge. It looked almost angry. Like it wanted to be freed. Like it carried a god's wrath. That night she did not sleep. She squeezed her thighs shut and thought of him, ashamed and aroused in equal measure. But Wanja wasn't alone. The village was quiet on the surface, but Jumo's name was already on every tongue. The pastor's wife, Evelyn, prayed harder than usual, her rosary beads nearly snapping between her fingers. But even she had been caught watching him from behind her curtain when he passed. One night, as Jumo drank palm wine by the fire outside his compound, Evelyn came under the pretense of delivering holy flyers. She stayed longer than she should have. Her eyes kept flicking downwards, and when she left, she walked strangely, as if her own thoughts had betrayed her knees. But nobody dared say it out loud. Only old men in the bar whispered, "The boy is cursed with blessings too big to hide." Even the chief's wife, who dressed in city clothes and looked down on village women, started offering Jumo little favors, a goat here, some yam there. She said it was charity. The way she looked at him said something else. Still, Jumo said little. He wasn't arrogant. He didn't flirt, he didn't chase. He simply existed in his body, moved through the village like a walking temptation, and the silence around him was the loudest thing of all. He had returned to bury his father, and when the burial was done, he said he would leave, but no one wanted him to. Not really. Not even the men, whose wives were beginning to act strange. In the tailoring shop, the married women stitched clothes with trembling fingers. They laughed too loud when Jumo passed. They began wearing tighter dresses, applying gloss to their lips. Excuses, they said, but their eyes betrayed them. Then came the night of the storm, the one that changed everything. Wanja had gone to fetch firewood, ignoring her mother's warning about the clouds. The rain came down like a curse. Trees bent, lightning cracked, and she ran for shelter, only to find herself at the edge of Jumo's compound. He opened the door shirtless, his skin wet and shining, his eyes calm like a man who owned the thunder. She should have left. She should have run back into the rain. But when he said, "Come inside," her feet disobeyed. The hut was small, warm with the scent of fire and something male. He gave her a cloth to dry off, and when their hands touched, something passed between them. Something hot and unholy. She could feel his eyes on her soaked blouse, the way her nipples pressed against the fabric. He looked away, but she didn't. She stood close to him. Too close. And when he said her name, just her name, her knees weakened. Wanja, deep, soft, dangerous. And that was all it took. Her hands found his chest, then his waist, then lower, until she touched the thing that had haunted her. And it was real. It was thick, hot, heavy in her palm. She gasped, not from fear, but from awe. It pulsed, it throbbed, and when it was free, it stood like something carved by spirits. She fell to her knees, not to pray, not that night. That night she worshipped something else. She tasted him like sin, slow and deep, as if to understand why no woman ever forgot him. He moaned, low and guttural, a sound that stayed in her belly for days after, and when he finally lifted her, placed her on his bed, and entered her with the full weight of what he carried, she screamed. Not from pain. From surrender. Her body opened, stretched, wept, shook. It wasn't just sex. It was a possession. Jumo didn't just fill her. He devoured her, bent her, broke her, built her again. And when he finished, she didn't even want to leave. But she had to. Dawn was near. Her mother would ask. People would know, but Wanja had changed. Forever. Word spread fast. Not by mouth, by eyes. Women looked at Wanja differently, the way she walked, the new silence in her laughter, and others became bolder. That week alone, Jumo had 3 visitors late at night, each one leaving breathless, guilty, satisfied. The village began to rot from the inside. Husbands became angry. Fights broke out. One man beat his wife for smiling too wide at Jumo. The pastor condemned lust in his sermons. But his wife began glowing in ways even prayer couldn't explain. The chief called Jumo for a meeting, told him to control himself. But Jumo said nothing. I didn't chase them, he said. They came. Now the village stands on the edge of scandal. Wanja is pregnant. The pastor's wife has disappeared for 2 days, and Jumo, he just sharpens his machete by the mango tree, waiting for whatever comes next. Because he knows something the others are only now beginning to learn. When a man's manhood is big enough to carry a curse, no woman leaves untouched. And no village remains whole. Wanja's belly began to show before the new harvest. It wasn't large, not yet, but it pushed against her wrapper with the boldness of a secret too tired to hide. The elders noticed first, and their silence was heavier than judgment. Her mother, Mama Nalia, asked questions she didn't want the answers to. Who is the father? She whispered one night, shaking her as if answers could fall from her lips like coins. Wanja said nothing. Her eyes only stared at the floor, shame glowing under her skin like hot charcoal. Everyone in the village had a guess, but no one dared say his name aloud. Saying Jumo's name had become like calling on a demon during rain. You knew it would strike. Jumo, for his part, remained the storm he had always been, quiet, slow-moving, but full of destruction wherever he passed. He didn't touch Wanja again after that night, but he didn't need to. The damage had already spread. It was Evelyn, the pastor's wife, who fell next, and her fall was louder. She had started praying in tongues louder than before, pacing back and forth in the church compound with eyes full of panic and lust. But even the Holy Spirit couldn't drown the heat in her blood. It was said she had gone to Jumo late one night, trembling and wet under her umbrella. She came back to hours later, barefoot, hair undone, and a glow on her face that not even prayer could explain. A week later, the pastor stood at the pulpit, preaching about Jezebel's spirits, and Evelyn sat at the front pew, legs tightly crossed, eyes burning with satisfaction. People whispered that Jumo had made her moan so loud that even the goats stopped chewing. She was never the same. She no longer flinched when her husband raised his voice. She had tasted something bigger than shame. The chaos spread like fire in dry grass. Women began fighting in the market. One even threw a calabash at another, accusing her of sneaking into Jumo's compound during sunset. Another was caught leaving his place with her blouse, and the men grew restless. They gathered under the big fig tree and held a secret meeting. That man is ruining our homes, one shouted. Our women no longer see us. We must banish him, said another. But no one had the courage to confront Jumo, not directly. He was too strong, too calm, too mysterious, and his manhood, that mythical piece of him, had gained a power of its own. Even women who had never touched him dreamed of it. They whispered about it as they bathed. They talked about it in code, referring to it as the beast, the fire stick, or simply the reason. One night, Chief Obuja sent his own wife Damaris to gather information. Find out what that man carries, he said, not out of curiosity but fear. Damaris was known for her pride and high taste. She had once slapped a teacher for calling her madam instead of madam, but when she entered Jumo's compound, she returned different. Her lipstick was smeared. Her voice cracked when she spoke. And when the chief demanded to know what happened, she only said, "He carries something no woman can resist." That night, Chief Obuja didn't sleep. Not because his wife had cheated, but because he knew, deep in his soul, that even if he killed Jumo, the women would mourn. Then came the stranger, a light-skinned woman from the city, wearing sunglasses and perfume that choked the air. She arrived in a black car with tinted windows and asked for Jumo by name. "Where is he?" she demanded, her accent sharp, her eyes hungry. Her name was Clara, and she was the merchant's wife from the city, the one Jumo had allegedly ruined before returning to the village. She said she had come to get answers. But her first night in the village, she slept at Jumo's hut, and from the sounds that escaped his walls, nobody believed she was asking questions. The next morning, she cooked for him. She walked barefoot, she even fetched water. The women watched, confused and jealous. Here was a city woman, polished and proud, now humble in the face of one man's desire. That evening, she stood in the middle of the market and shouted, "You fools don't know what you have." She looked around, chest heaving. Jumo isn't just a man, he's a need. Once he's inside you, you forget your name. The silence that followed was terrifying. Children were rushed indoors, the elders turned their faces, but some of the younger women looked at her with wide, wet eyes, hoping for directions. Then Wanja collapsed. It happened at the river. She had gone to wash her clothes, and as she bent to scrub, her legs gave in. When she woke up, she was in the herbalist's hut, sweat pouring from her body, hands clutching her belly. The pregnancy was real. Strong, but it was not normal. The herbalist, old Mama Tuma, took one look at her stomach, and whispered, "What kind of seed did this man plant?" She tied charms around Wanja's waist, burned herbs under her bed, and warned her mother to keep her indoors. "This child will not be ordinary," she said. "He carries the hunger of his father." The men finally acted. They surrounded Jumo's compound at night with machetes and ropes. But when he came out, shirtless, bare-chested under the moonlight, his eyes glowing with calm rage, none of them moved. He didn't say a word, he just stood there, a lion among jackals. One of the men, the blacksmith's son, dropped his weapon and fled. The others followed. They told their wives they were outnumbered by spirits, but in truth, they were simply afraid, not of Jumo's strength, but of their own wives' desires. The church called for prayer. The chief called for counsel. The women called for nothing. They had already chosen. One by one, they found reasons to visit Jumo. A torn wrapper, a borrowed pot, a dream they needed interpreted, and he gave them more than answers. He gave them silence, darkness, release. Some went once. Some returned weakly. Some never left whole. Now Wanja walks like a woman carrying a god inside her. Evelyn has stopped attending church. Damaris laughs, too loud in public. And Clara, the city woman, has bought land beside Jumo's compound. She says she wants to build a school, but no one believes her. The village is changing. The men drink more. The women sleep less. And Jumo, he remains, a mystery. A man whose manhood was too large to hide, too strong to cage, and too dangerous to forget. But something is stirring. Wanja's child kicks at night hard, wild, angry. The herbalist says he may be more than human. The elders fear he may be a curse or a blessing sent by ancient gods. But no one knows for sure. Not yet. All they know is that ever since Jumo came back, nothing, no woman, no marriage, no secret has stayed the same. And the village, it holds its breath. Because what walks with Jumo now is not just lust, it's something deeper, something darker. Something that promises more heat, more scandal, more fall. The moon turned red, the night Wanja screamed loud enough to wake the ancestors. It wasn't just labor, it was war. Her legs thrashed on the herbalist's bed, her hands gripped the mat so tightly her knuckles bled. Thunder rolled without rain, and the wind spun like it carried spirits. The women surrounded her with prayers, songs, herbs, and tears. But even they knew something ancient was pushing through her womb. Not just a child, but a consequence. Jumo didn't come. He stood outside the hut, machete in hand, shirt soaked, eyes fixed on the moon like he was waiting for it to bleed. The men watched him from behind trees and shadows, unsure whether to fear him or worship him. They'd tried everything, threats, shame, even spells, but the women still returned. To him, even now, with Wanja breaking into two behind the curtain, some wives were thinking not of her pain, but of the last time Jumo's hands were on their thighs. When the child finally came, the hut went silent, even the goats stopped bleating. The baby didn't cry. He opened his eyes wide, too wide, and stared. Mama Tuma stumbled back. One of the women fainted. The baby had Jumo's eyes, but deeper, older. And he held his mother's finger with such strength that her nails cracked. This is not a child, Mama Tuma whispered. This is a sign. Wanja, pale and trembling, looked into the baby's face and said nothing. She knew. From the moment Jumo first touched her, she had known he was not just man. He was a walking curse with the body of a blessing. That same night, the pastor packed and fled the village. He left a note behind saying God had shown him flames in his dreams, and a man with a beast between his legs bringing ruin. Evelyn didn't follow. She stayed behind, moved into Jumo's hut, and called herself his second wife. Damaris divorced. The chief end opened a bar near the main road. Clara left after finding Wanja's baby staring at her one morning, his eyes unblinking, his hands clenched like a threat. That child doesn't blink, she whispered as she drove away. He knows me. He knows what I did. Then came the fire. It started in the church, a blaze so wild it consumed the altar, the chairs, the wooden cross, and even the prayer books. No one knew how it started. Some said it was lightning, others swore it was the baby. They'd seen him sitting near the window, smiling at the flames like they were his brothers. After the fire, the village changed completely. The men grew quiet. The women bolder, and Jumo. He remained unbothered. But he knew something was ending. Something he had carried too long, his gift, his curse, his manhood had been passed on. Not through sex, not through scandal, but through blood. The child. He left before sunrise. No goodbye, no farewell, just silence. Wanja woke up to find a wooden carving on her doorstep, a small statue of a man with a thick staff between his legs and a broken heart in his hands. That was all he left behind. Some said he walked into the forest and never returned. Others believed he went to another village to start again. But most agreed, men like Jumo don't die, they pass through places like shadows and leave earthquakes behind. Years later, Wanja's son sits under the mango tree where his father once sharpened his machete. He says little, smiles rarely, but the girls from the school across the hill already whisper about him. He is only 9. But when he walks, the air changes, the women pause, and the earth remembers. Because some gifts, especially the ones between a man's legs, are too powerful to bury, and some legacies never end. They just begin again.